Hi everyone, welcome back. It's been a long time, but it's good to be back. Today we're going to be doing probably the most important part of Python programming because basically everything else, probably every script that you'll ever write will have some form of conditional in it. So everything that we've done thus far was you just basically looking at a program that usually runs from the top to the bottom and executes it in that order, especially in Python. That's a more high-level language. But with conditionals, this is a way to actually control how your script is being run. So as you can see here, the definition or an explanation is that conditionals are used when you require that a program looks at the script that you wrote and makes a decision about which part of the scripts will be executed and which ones will be skipped based on whether or not it satisfies the conditions of the statement or the expression. So it will look something like this over here. There would be an if statement. There might be some other ones, but we'll get to that later. But it starts with if, and then an expression. And this is basically where you state the condition, and then a series of statements which needs to be executed if this expression is true. So this is why we learned Booleans first, because in the background of conditionals, it basically runs on Booleans. So if whatever is in here is true, execute whatever is underneath. If false, then skip the statements. So here's example one, for example. It says, if humans can be expiring, execute, give humans a chance. So because the above is true, we are going to execute, give humans a chance. You see example number 2, it says, if all politicians can be trusted, now this is false, so it won't execute, give them your money. So basically, as I said, this needs to be true in order for this to be executed. So probably a more formal definition would be, it's code that instructs a computer to scan data and to decide whether it satisfies your requirements or your conditions. So for example, you might have a file that has a whole lot of data in it, and you will give it some sort of instruction that says, if a certain condition in that file is being met, for example, if the line in this specific file, if there's a line in the file that is longer than length 5, then print that line to me. Okay, so it will scan data. In this case, our data would be the file with the lines. And if it satisfies your requirements, then it's going to execute or give you whatever you've put in here as a statement. Okay, so there are a number of operators that you will see all the time, and we won't go through all of them, but we'll go through some of the most important ones. So, for example, all the lines of code that are in this green box over here will have operators such as equal to, not equal to, in, and that will produce, like I said, an answer that is either true or false, and based on the true or false, the statement will be executed. So some of the most commonly used comparison operators are this greater than and less than. So the symbol is shown here in gray. There's also more than or equal to. So please note it's or. So it could be either one of the two. Okay, so it could be more than or it could be equal to. There's also this, which I think we need to just pause on a bit. This means equals or is equivalent to. And then if you put an exclamation mark in front of it, it means not equal to. Now there's also something called is, which means if it's the same as. So oftentimes these two are they are used interchangeably, or some think that it's the same thing, but it's actually not. So this equivalent to means, for example, that you can swap out the one for the other, right? So you can swap out $1 for $1 and it will still be exactly the same thing. Or if you create a clone, they are genetically the same, so they are equivalent to one another. But this is means that it's exactly the same. So if you think about it in computer memory terms, then it means that they are both so much the same that they have been allocated exactly the same memory, or the memory ID. So whereas this will pass for two clones, this one will not, because even though the two clones are the same, similar genetically, or basically the same genetically, they are still not the same individual, or the same sample. So this will only be used if you're trying to say, is this exactly that? Not similar to, not equal to, but is it that? Okay, so you have to make sure that you know when to use which. Okay, then there's also in, and again this you also use a lot. So this is basically saying in, and then this is basically checking, for example, a data type such as a string or a list to see if a specific value is in that data type or list. Again, there's also not in. So if you put a not in front, like I showed over here, then that means obviously the opposite of in. So it's basically almost like not equal to here at number 4. But again, like these are not the same. Okay, and I'm going to show how you need to be careful with some examples later on. So I want you to pause the video over here and just go through some of these and see whether you would have answered this. You can type it out on your own on your Jupyter notebook or whichever text editor you are using for IDE, and then just go through this and see whether you can answer, print is 3 equivalent to 5 or equal to 5, and again, and you will see for each of this there will be a true or false that is being printed, because these conditionals or these operators all produce Booleans as an answer. So take a look at this. I'm just going to go on to the answers. And just again, these are all stuff that you've seen already. We've used this, for example, we've used .count, we've used in, we've used .starts with, is up. I think I've just showed this as an example, but definitely you've used is upper and is lower as in part of your exercises that you did in the previous example. So just practice this, see if you get it, and note that there's an example for this reads basically as, and don't get confused again, because this is, if I'm going to show you again, this is basically, it's this, but it's just that we put this part over here inside of a print statement so that it can immediately also print out the answer. But this reads as is V in the list, this particular list. And then, yeah, it will answer true or false. And note again, is lower, but you can also do a not is.lower. I'm going to just print out these answers here so that after you're done with it, you can see what the answers are to that. Let me just make this smaller so that they all fit in. So you can pause it over here and see whether you've got, or obviously just run it on your own and see whether you've got the same answers or the correct answers. Okay. Something that I want to state again is that the true and false words are built-in words in Python. So they are not really strings, they are Booleans, and so they cannot be chosen as variable names. And because they are built-in words, they don't need to be surrounded by quotation marks because they are not a string. So you can print true and you can print false, and it will, you know, it will print exactly that, because this is a Boolean. So you're basically not saying print the string true, you're saying print the Boolean true, and it prints it, or false. So as opposed to, for example, if you had to print DNA name, that is not a built-in Python name, then you will obviously get an error, a name error that says this is not defined. Okay, so here this is an actual variable name that you can use, that needs to be assigned a value before it becomes active, so to speak. Okay, and here's another example to show if you type true is equal to string, then you will get, you can't assign true. You can't assign the string to true, okay? Because true is a keyword that's already built into Python. But what I want to stress again here is that Python is case sensitive. So if you were to type true with a small letter, then you should have no problem, right? So this will hold string as a value in true. I didn't print this, so obviously nothing is printing, but I'm just showing you that it's not giving an error. But you can obviously print this. You can now print that variable, and it should print string.